Welcome, everyone, to the ATJ Board Public Session Agenda for Friday, August 7th, 2026. Thank you all for attending today's meeting. And we will go ahead and proceed with our agenda. Hopefully, folks had a chance to review the minutes, and we can review if there's any edits, and then also approve. And that's on page 2 and 3 of the agenda. And before I get started, I would like to see if there's any guest that we have here that is joining us. And I just see one, Marichu Alvizar.
Yes.
Hi, welcome. And do you want to just say your name, pronouns, and if you are representing yourself or an organization?
Yeah. Buenos días. Mari Chuyalvisa, ella, she, her, with Unidos Nueva Alianza.
Great. Thank you for being here. All right. Are there other guests that we have today? I see Abby from Northwest Justice Project. Welcome. And I also see Michael Terasaki. And I see Sarah Robbins from Okla. Thank you for attending. All
Morning.
right. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Nope, it's
Welcome.
just
Okay.
saying good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday. All right. So let's go ahead and if the board members can review the June ATJ board meeting. And if it looks good, we can motion and second approval for the minutes from June 5th.
I'll move to approve the minutes from June 5th.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Chrissy. Anyone second that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Carla. Moved in second. All in favor, please raise your hand, board members. Great. Anyone oppose? Great. Thank you. All right, so let's move to the topic that we have, which is the rapid response in immigration crisis. So I'll just kind of tee it up. When we went to the on the road visit in Ellensburg, and I think we probably met Mitri there, we were there was a lot of public conversation around the Lozano case and what was the legal organization's response to the many thousands of people who've been impacted by getting immigration services specifically around the Lozano. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of hearing what were some of the coordinated activities happening from the Bar Association, from maybe civil legal aid organizations and other organizations in response to some of the challenges that happened since the fallout. And so that is kind of, we're going to spend about 30 minutes just hearing from folks about what has been happening on that front to provide support to not just individuals who had cases with Lozano, but also with families who've also been impacted. This is pretty much what we've heard when we were in Ellensburg, and we just wanted to hear kind of a response from the different groups and organizations in this meeting. So I'm going to hand it to you, Mercedes, if you want to
Yeah,
get off.
yes, sure. So yeah, we just want to open up the floor to people, but also give some updates. I'm a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and secretary of the Washington State chapter. The chapter in coordination with other groups and the state bar have been putting together different clinics and workshops. There have been several clinics throughout the state in July, a couple in the Seattle area and a couple in Central Washington. The name of the organization that Eilish Via Malone works for is escaping me at the time, but I know there was a couple clinics. Yeah, Central Washington Legal Aid. Thanks, Diana. In Central Washington, I think there was one based in Quincy, um, in in mid-July, and then there was another one too, I think, a week later. and mostly these clinics have been focused around mainly around a key issue, which is change of address for the applications, because for a lot of these kinds of the applications that Lozano's firms their client where the main kind of applications that they filed are humanitarian based applications where the mailings from USCIS typically just go to the attorney's office and not to the client, because these are often protected confidential cases. And so, since the firm is closed, there's a big issue with the mail getting to the clients, and so making sure that address changes have been changed to the client's address, to a safe address, or somewhere where the client has access to the mail so that they can keep on track of their case, because otherwise they could be missing important notices and possibly get their case denied because they're missing notices and missing time to respond to those notices. And also another big need that some of the clinics have been focused on was FOIA requests with USCIS for clients' files, because oftentimes clients did not receive their complete files from Lozano's office. So there's a lot of distrust about what they did receive. So just double checking for their own sake and for their new attorney's sake, and for their own records, to get hold of their complete files. So those are the two main efforts that the clinics have been focused on. Um, but we did want to hear from others, from what they're seeing or what other needs are needed. Any other efforts that are being done outside of what the American Immigration Lawyers Association and other like legal nonprofits that I haven't mentioned are doing. So we were just, as the ATJ board, we were just very curious to hear from others and wanted to make sure that we open up space to others to discuss what they're seeing, what they need, etc. Mary Tree, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, so we've been helping Unido Nueva Alianza has been helping Central Washington Legal Aid with some of the clinics and doing the change of address, help request a FOIA, give everything to Eilish for her review. But a lot of the questions we've been getting, since we're, out in the community, is if someone's gonna offer, if we know someone, two things. One, if how to join the lawsuit, and I kind of shared what the website, the Washington State Bar Association website has, and then also if they can get some refunds back of what they paid, because some paid 20, 25, because they're like family petitions. And I was wondering if there was like, if anyone's planning on doing like a workshop or a session on how, like, to make it easier for our community on how, one, how to join the lawsuit, two, how to fill out the forms, or if it's a possibility they can get some money back for what they paid. Those are my questions.
Thanks for that, Mary Tree. I think those are some good questions, and I think a good need. And thanks for raising up the need for people that are interested in finding out more about joining the lawsuit. And yeah, I'm glad you also brought up the a big question that people have been raising, which is how to possibly get some of their money back. Um, because yeah, like people have paid a lot of money, their life savings are borrowed from others, just to be put in a terrible situation. Diana?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in with some updates from the Bar Association around what we're trying to do to help Lozano clients, and maybe in sharing the update, I could answer some of the questions or letting you know kind of what's in the works to answer your questions, Madachui. Um, one thing I want to let folks know is that we convened legal aid organizations in Ayla, Washington on Tuesday earlier this week. And specifically organizations who are trying to do these clinics and trying to provide some assistance. So there are probably about 20 different organizations who met earlier this week to mostly just share information and know who's doing what. So it's just the beginning of or that was our first meeting, and we're planning on trying to meet more regularly. And so if you weren't, and we're trying to make sure everybody knows as well. So if you're interested and you weren't there and want that information, put your name in the chat and I'll make sure to include you on that information. One of the things that the group talked about, in addition to just sharing who's doing what, is kind of getting to your question, Manatui, which is like how, these like how do people find help with filling out the forms, getting, joining the lawsuit, because different organizations are doing different things, but there's not like a centralized place. So we talked about how to centralize, people are creating self-help materials. So trying to create it in one place. And so we didn't get to figuring out how and where to do that, but that is one of the things that we want to do. And one place we talked about possibly is Ayla, Washington has created a website for Lozano clients. And so possibly doing it there. And I'm going to put in the chat not only Ayla Washington's webpage, which is the first one, but then just where a couple other, there's more organizations, but these are two organizations that you already mentioned, Central Washington Legal Aid, and they have a Facebook page with the clinics that are coming up that I'm sure, Monichu, you're already familiar with. And then NERP is also planning some clinics this month and next month. And it's not posted on their webpage yet, but it will be soon. One other thing I was going to mention is the Bar Association. There is the web page that is currently up, but I'm in the process of, and I'm going to put the link to that webpage so everybody has it. So that has a lot of information, but we're working on some FAQs that are in more plain language that is more easy to navigate. And so we're almost done with trying to get that finalized and then also translated, but you can be on the lookout for information on the bar's website that will be more easy to navigate. And then one thing I wanted to point out that's currently on the bar's website is something that we just updated last night or yesterday, is an update about the client files. So I know a lot of former Lozano clients have had a difficult time getting the files back, and they've been supposed to be being returned by Lozano's attorneys. That has not been going well, as we all know. And so the disciplinary board chair just entered a order to appoint 2 custodians. So now Lozano's attorneys are out of the picture, and now these 2 custodians, Adam Boyd and Russ Aoki, they're going to now have access to everything and really try and organize and how to get clients their files. So that's on the website. So before we had told folks to email OGC at WSBA if you're having problems. Now that we have custodians, you can, there's a different email. It's in the link that I just sent to try and get the files. The other piece, just going back to the money question, there's lots of potential ways for people to get their money back. One would be if there were a civil lawsuit, and I know there's a couple of lawsuits that have been filed. Another is if Lozano were to be charged with a crime, there could be restitution that she has to pay that would go to former clients. Another way is, and this goes back to the custodianship appointment, but the Lozano actually did have a trust account. So some of her clients, I don't know what funds are in that trust account, but now that we have a custodians appointed, they will have access to determining what is in that trust account and what funds belong to what clients. So that's another potential source. And then the fourth source is the client protection fund, which is it's really kind of meant to be sort of the last resort if you can't get access to any of these funds, to get some funds through that fund. And then the fifth possible way is if the disciplinary board were to decide to enter an order, and this is going to be on the FAQs that we're going to post soon, to order Lozano to pay funds. So it's very confusing, very overwhelming. We're trying to organize things so it's easy for people to understand. And so I just wanted to report that. And then the last thing I was going to share is I've been talking to various funders to see what resources may be available to help organizations that are trying to serve Lozano clients. And so one organization is the Legal Foundation of Washington, and they have their accelerator grant application that's open. The letter of intent is actually due August 15th, so that's coming up. But oh, there's Caitlin. And so, Caitlin, I just wanted to make sure people know about this, and feel free to jump in on the accelerator grant if you want.
Yes, I would. As Diana just said, the deadline is a week from today, and strong preference will be given to a comprehensive, unified request for funding as opposed to 18 different requests. I know that presents some challenges in terms of coordinating and collaborating in a short period of time, but I think the overall goal of helping clients in this situation will be better served if there's a single large request. When large is relative. I know the group either has already met with some people, group of state funders have already met, and we're all thinking along the same lines in terms of how to offer the community support.
Thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate that. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, the state funders have been meeting to figure out if they can organize some other resources. That's still in the works. And then the last funding pieces on the BAR's end, I'm trying to see if there's any BAR funds to help with kind of the more immediate discrete needs, just to get clinics up or continue to support the clinics. So more information will be shared hopefully very soon. And I'll make sure, Marichu, to add you to my list. So I think that's all I wanted to share in terms of an update from the bar.
Are there any other updates or questions or discussion? All right, if not, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Mercedes. Yeah, I think this is kind of an ongoing topic, and I'm glad to hear that a lot of work has been really focused on this. And thank you, Diana, for this update from the Bar Association on the work that they're doing, as well as the coordinated efforts. Anyone else would like to, it sounds like no one else has other topics. I'm happy to move to the next topic, which is the GR 34 fee waiver update. So, couple of updates here. So my first update is that we are still in the process of kind of organizing that meeting that we will be having in the first week in September for the GR 34. As you can see, there's been a lot of letters from the Supreme Court. The ATJ Board and the Supreme Court is convening a meeting at the Bar Association Bar Association office in Seattle. Sorry, it's in Seattle. And we are moving forward with the planning stages and the logistics of those meetings. Also had an opportunity to touch base with Chach at our last disco meeting. This was a conversation around kind of what would be helpful for for that meeting in GR34, and able to follow up with Chach earlier this week to get some insight about what information should be shared among the Clerks Association, the Judges Association, as well as the Supreme Court members who will be in attendance for that meeting. So Diana and I did meet with the chief to kind of go through a little bit more logistics. We are still moving forward with getting an outside facilitator for that 2-hour meeting. And the overall focus will be not just really talking about kind of like, what are those issues and barriers. And so we're discussing about maybe putting together kind of a pre-worksheet or gathering information. One idea that Chach mentioned is just being able to have all the documents related to the GR34, the correspondence, all of that available. So have that available to the participants before that September meeting, but then also have a worksheet that would really help to kind of identify what are the specific barriers, and then really shift into what are some of the solutions. I think that is really the focus of this meeting, this convening, is really for the Supreme Court to also be kind of aware of kind of the challenges around GR34, and then to hear from the clerks, the judges, as well as the QLSP members who are attending that meeting on ideas of how of a pathway forward. So that is kind of a recap of where we are on the GR fee waiver update. I know that one of the things that I think it was also really helpful to, there was a question that I did ask Disco at the last meeting around what were some of the GR34 waiver barriers on the appellate level, and also had a chance to touch base with Erin, who is on the appellate work group. Erin Lemon, who's she and Francis, as well as Sarah Augustine, are on the appellate work group. And as folks may be aware, that this appellate work group is going to be kind of a committee of the ATJ board. And so thank you, Sitlali, for being that liaison for that. And so Sitlali was also in that conversation with Erin. I thought it was actually super helpful, and Sitlali, feel free to chime in if you any other insights, but it was really helpful to kind of hear from that appellate work group what if there were some barriers around the GR34. And it looks like the issues around filing was not an issue, but being able to obtain transcripts and records and all of the other things for folks to be able to even submit their appeal is a barrier. And that is what we also heard from many of the QLSP members. It's not just filing is one big issue, but it's also getting the records as well. So really looking forward to the conversation. We're trying to, create the do a lot of pre-work for this meeting to be really successful. And our hopes is really to come away with some ideas of how do we want to move forward with, really focusing on some tangible solutions from that meeting. So any questions that folks have? So we are moving forward with the meeting. We're excited. It is at the bar office, and that's taking place in September. I don't have the date in front of me, but in September. Any questions about the GR34 fee waiver? All right. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic, which is community chair updates. So I have myself for Disco, and Nick is not able to attend today. So if there's anyone on the rules committee, might be able to provide an update on that. And then Maya from technology. Maya, do you want to start with any updates on the technology committee?
Yeah, my bandwidth is definitely at its capacity, so I'm gonna be off camera.
Okay.
I would say the major update with the ATJ technology committee is that we're going to be having CLE Lunch and Learn in September. So keep an eye out on that.
Great. All right. I can give an update, and also Michael, I see that you're on online as well. So if you have any specific updates. So we did have a couple of agenda topics from our July meeting. One was RPC 1.8, and I see Karen is here, but I think the update is that they were going to the August 3rd is the next meeting with the Rules Committee and deliberate. I don't know, is that correct? Did that happen? And
I
maybe you
can
could
give a very brief update if you
that'd be
want.
great. Yeah.
We did have some of our work group folks connect with the rules committee, and there's just sort of a plan for us to try to have a regular connection with them. So we didn't really sort of like solve everything at that moment, but I think they're really interested in trying to find ways to support what we're trying to accomplish. So I think at the moment we're going to try to find someone from our work group to go to the rules committee kind of for the next couple of months and try to be a bridge to like what we're trying to accomplish with the rules committee. But they were very receptive to like the problem we're trying to solve. And so the other kind of two maybe updates around kind of where we think we are, the timing of proposing a new rule change, sort of when you look in the calendar year, is like we would want to submit and have everything ready in the fall, right? That's kind of and then the Supreme Court kind of looks at it in January, and then there's like a open process, and then sort of a decision in the spring. We'd be curious if you think we've made the wrong decision, but our opinion is that we should prepare to request the rule next fall and not this fall, because we don't know who we're dealing with as a Supreme Court. And we wanted time to find out who's on the Supreme Court and then actually spend some time helping them understand the issue before submitting like the request for rule change. It seemed like a lot. I mean, considering we've already had some barriers, like with the Supreme Court that was in place for a long time, that it was a lot to submit a proposed rule change to a brand new group of people who maybe haven't been socialized in any way to like what the issue is or why it matters. So the benefit, I guess, to us is that gives us some time to really try to keep working within the ATJ community about the way we approach the rule change to try to resolve some of the internal like differences of opinion about how we propose it and whether it's something that just applies very narrowly to QLSPs or whether there's a way to make the goals that we're trying to accomplish like available to a larger body of people who serve low-income folks. So that's our plan at the moment. And I hope that sounds wise. Like we're not trying to avoid getting the work done, but I think we were trying to be strategic about knowing who the audience is that we're engaging on the rule change. So I'd welcome any input from folks about that.
Thanks, Karen. And then the other topic we talked about was around GR34. I failed to mention that there are the four QLSP representatives who will be attending that meeting is going to be Chach Duarte White, who Nick and I met earlier this week, Meredith Bruch from Northwest Justice Project, Andy Dugan from the Skagit VLP, and Brian Buckley, and he's the attorney from Morgan Lewis. And so those are the four QLSPs who will be in attendance. I'm not sure if they've all RSVP'd yet. If they have not, please, we will probably be including a kind of a RSVP part of that GR34. And then we also kind of discussed kind of what would be helpful, and that's for facilitating that meeting. And then we also talked about Lozano related immigration clinics happening, and then the ATJ order feedback. And so for those who are just not, we are in the process of, we just received a bunch of feedback on our ATJ order, and we will be incorporating a lot of feedback that we received from the DISCO meeting, as well as from our other meetings and listening sessions, and our survey to start integrating some of those comments that we have, and then hopefully we will revisit at the next ATJ board meeting. Any questions about DISCO meeting? And Michael, did I miss anything as a recap?
No, I think that was a good recap.
Okay, great. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, and that is alliance partner updates. So I see a couple. Abby, I see a big smile, so I think you're ready.
I like to start most things
Yeah,
with a big smile.
good.
Good morning, everyone. And for those I haven't met, I'm Abby Dakis. I serve as Executive Director at Northwest Justice Project. And a couple of exciting things that are happening at NJP that are really about the Alliance connection is as part of our Family Law Task Force work, we convene a bunch of other providers that work in the same area. And when there's an appeal that's pending that's important for our clients, we will often be asked to or offer an amicus brief and support. And so there was an issue in front of the Washington State Supreme Court, and the decision came down just this week. And it has to do with, it's more technical than I know within family law, but it has to do with counting. It's about parenting plans and when you can make changes when certain conditions have been met. And it really is very important for safety for our clients. And so our team penned the brief, but we work closely with our other advocates at Sexual Violence Law Center, Elizabeth Hendren, other people were part of this effort. And so we wrote a brief to the Supreme Court, and this week the decision came down in our favor, citing the amicus, and also someone who is closely related to, closely aligned with legal aid is on the bench. So Colleen Melody, Justice Melody, wrote the opinion, and because of our longstanding work together with the AG's office when they were doing their civil rights work, and the trust that we've built there, and also this great network of people around the state doing family law, sometimes when we write these briefs, and have the board approve it, we never know, like, how often is it that they read them? Like, how important is it to the issue? And we were cited, the Alliance's amicus brief was cited, and it's really important that we keep an eye out for opportunities like that to influence the decisions so that the perspective of low-income Washingtonians is heard at the highest level of our state court. So I'll pop it in the chat. The decision is Hawk versus, or in the marriage of Hawk, HAUK. That's one, which I thought was really cool. And then related to family law, our very own Carla Carlisle, who is our managing attorney in our Tri-Cities and Walla Walla offices, also on the Gender and Justice Commission, many of you know her long service there, received the WSBA Family Law Section Attorney of the Year Award at their annual conference just last month. And so we're really proud of that recognition. I think it's important that the rest of the bar knows the amazing powerhouse that all of us here in the Alliance really bring to the practice of law. And so that's one really great recognition. And I know that they both, I know that Carla, made remarks, and really, it's really important for her to have this whole Alliance, have all of these practitioners be reminded about the importance of the work we do here in legal aid. So that's two things that came out last week that were really fun. And then also some thanks to the ATJ Board and their recognition of our farm worker unit was it Wenatchee or Ellensburg? We were in Ellensburg.
Ellensburg.
Yep. What a privilege to receive the Promoter of Justice Award from this body. And you might have seen it on our social media, but Alex Galarza, who has been a longtime outreach coordinator there, and he's now a manager of our outreach team, just such heartfelt gratitude, and it's really powerful to be part of this really great network of folks. So those are some things happening from NJP's perspective. Always housing task force related, like there's different task forces are meeting all the time. So if you know anyone that's new to the system that wants to get engaged, please reach out. I can make sure that both the decision from the Supreme Court and the link to get more information about how to access those task forces is in the chat. And I was hoping to have an update from Eva Westcott, who many of you know. She's our client access team manager, a senior managing attorney, engaging with DISCO on our clear assessment recommendations and the implementation of how we're going to work together to figure out how to improve our intake and referral system across the state. So thanks in advance. And I know you've all sat through some presentations as part of the board work, but there'll be more work to do with the alliance partners, and I think the right spot for that really is DISCO. So we're excited to move that forward. I know that Oprah has really wanted to put that put our energies there, and so we're excited to continue on with that work. And I don't know if I have any other, I don't have the save the dates for the task force meetings that are going to be in person, but there's going to be another one for housing task force, also probably in October. So we're looking forward to convening our growing army of housing advocates and leaders in Washington State together in person to talk about what's pressing for both eviction defense and all the other housing issues that we're all facing in the middle of this disaster. I feel like there might be one more thing, but I might have taken up too much time already. Any questions at all about NJP, feel free to let me know. I will probably not know the answer, but can route you to the right person.
Great. Thanks, Abby. It's great. And I saw that you published your impact report, right? And that came out. And
oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Thanks so much for doing that, for amplifying that. I will put that in the chat as well. We had some kinks to work out. It is also available in Spanish. And we are proud of the work that is being done across the state. And a lot of that in partnership with a bunch of our providers around the state too. So we'll definitely, Karen, connect with you about making sure that we are overlapping those conversations. Yeah, thank you, Michael. It was a fun report to look at. Hopefully the interactiveness is working. We had some, again, glitches at the top end, but it's something that really, I think, highlights the sort of the breadth of the work across the state because we're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, Sarah Robbins. I'm the Director of Office of Civil Legal Aid. I think the most pressing issue that I'm working on, like right in the moment, is we have been in touch with our eviction defense providers in Spokane multiple times a day around tenants and the Spokane County Complex Fire. The biggest issue right now is that we have heard that the sheriff will begin executing writs again on Monday. The sheriff's office had, up until this point, since the beginning of the fire emergency, had just voluntarily not been executing writs, but we've heard that will start again on Monday. So Oakland wrote a letter to the Spokane County Superior Court presiding officer asking for a stay through the end of the month on any execution of writs. You know, we know Housing Justice Project and NJP, who are our two providers in Spokane, you know, are hearing, you know, so these are people, tenants that generally speaking, so they've either entered into some kind of move out arrangement or a payment plan, or they've made some sort of arrangement where the writ has been issued by the court, but there is it's being held pending these other things. And with the fires happening, you know, families are not able to follow through on all of those, you know, things that are contingent on, you know, like moving out or making a payment plan because they're, you know, or they're, you know, all of these different things. So we're in touch with the presiding in Spokane. We're hoping that we're going to get this, more to come. We should know more by the end of the day, but that's, and then we're also working with the governor's office on some other potential fire related moratoriums. The one being if tenants are having to double up, and that would be like a breach of their lease, having a moratorium on being able to evict somebody, or they're taking care of somebody's pets and they're not allowed to have pets. So we're hoping that that's something that the governor's office is going to do. And then we're working with them on, what are some other protections that we can put in place for the remainder of the emergency for tenants both in Spokane. And then we know there's lots of statewide issues because people are having to leave Spokane. So more to come. That's all happening right now. If there are other, issues that people are seeing related to tenants, as a result of the fire, please reach out to myself or Philippe or Allie on my team, because we are trying to, as the governor's office and the courts are putting these, hopefully putting these orders together, we want to get as much protections in there as we can. Another thing we are working on is, we have the long-term appointed counsel for long-term care discharges, clients that are Medicaid eligible. We are in contact with DSHS and the Healthcare Authority because we know that there are a significant amount of people that are going to lose their Medicaid coverage as a result of HR 1 effective October 1st. And the numbers are fluctuating every day, but we think DSHS thinks there's about 1,700 people that are going to lose long-term care coverage the beginning of October based on that. The legislature allocated some state funding to keep people in long-term care, but the way that the funding is working, there's probably only about 200 slots, so significantly less than the people that are going to lose these. So we are, trying to, work with our providers to do outreach and working with DSHS and the Healthcare Authority on how they are doing sort of like an assessment of need based on they're using an acuity scale. So just trying to do as much as we can there. And I think those are my two big issues that we have in front of us right now. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Sarah, for that update.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caitlin, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Thanks. Thank you, Mike, for inviting us to give updates. I'm Caitlin. I'm the executive director of Legal Foundation, and I'm happy to give the reports from LFW and the Equal Justice Coalition. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in this call, our accelerator grant program has a deadline of a week from today. So, if you've got a one-time, 1-year funding request, this is the opportunity to do it with our organization. Now I've got another deadline, and I feel like I'm so much more than deadlines. But anyway, since we're in the deadline space, I'll let you know that the deadline for Goldmark Award nominations is the Friday before Labor Day. I can't remember if that's like the 4th or something, but it's like that. Just check your calendar. So if you know of some exemplary individual or organization who should be considered for the Goldmark Award in 2027, please let us know. Submit a nomination before that deadline. The Goldmark Award luncheon for 2027 will be The Goldmark Award luncheon next year is going to be on February 26th. So there you go. Save the date. I think we have more, fancy notices going out about that, but just so you know, if you're on this call, it's February 26th. The Equal Justice Coalition is continuing to work with the Office of Civil Legal Aid, Northwest Justice Project, and our other partners to build support for legal aid in the upcoming legislative session. We're also going to be working on funding from King County and continuing to work on the federal side of things as well. There's been a personnel change, but we hope to reconvene the alliance in a sort of a stakeholder listening session sometime in September. And then at that point, we'll start discussing if and when we should have a lobby day in Olympia, for example, or, what other kinds of activities we can and should do or might do, again, to maximize our funding from the legislature in what we know is going to be a tough budget session. But I think that is sort of all I've got to offer at this point. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Caitlin. So we will put on our date, save the date, the 26th, Goldmark. And, in the past, we, as ATJ Board, has done like a post-Goldmark forum. And so we'll definitely put a pin on that because when we have some strategic planning for later this fall. So, all right. Michael, do you have any updates from Pro Bono Council?
I think I don't have any major updates. The one thing I would mention, some of you know, we do run the Washington State Disaster Legal Assistance line. At this point, we are not taking calls regarding fires. We're actually still taking calls about floods. The statewide phone line focuses more on FEMA individual assistance applications than kind of ad hoc legal needs that may result from a disaster. So I think we'll probably be waiting on a formal disaster declaration from the president, which I expect will probably come, but that doesn't usually happen for a month or months after the initial disaster. So once we do get that, we'll kind of reactivate our outreach and our messaging for individual assistance applications. We assist with the initial application and then appeals of the application, which is really kind of where more of the work comes in. So just so you have that on your radar, it's not going to be open quite yet, but hopefully it'll be a useful tool for Washington disaster survivors in the coming months.
Just as a PS to that, Michael, thank you so much for raising that up. Washington Law Help is updating the page. The flood resources are still there, but we've also now added information about wildfire resources as we're collecting them from other places. Again, the goal of Washington Law Help is to create things that are in plain language, easy for folks to navigate. So if you guys have suggestions, always so happy to get feedback about something that isn't working, but also things to add to the page that need to stay for a while longer. Please continue to let that team know they really are responsive about what goes up there. And then if you're not on their list already, often we will share out through email blasts information about new resources that are on Washington Law Help. When a new form has been developed or a new questionnaire or new resources. So that's one way to keep up with any information that we can use to share out to folks in the community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Abby, who's the best person to send that stuff to just vet for Washington Law Help?
Oh, I would use the form. I would actually use their there's like on the page, it'll have like a tell us here, like I will put it in. I mean, for forms, your lead is Lori Graber, as you all know, and then Washington, and then Daniel Edgar is our managing attorney of that team. But they're really systematic and good about using like I'll find it, but on the website itself. That way we can keep track of like the requests that are coming in. But if Sarah, let me know if there's anything you want, like, hey, this is super wrong, or hey, let's get this. Yeah.
No, there was a message from Commerce that came out this morning that has like a big wildfire resource
Okay.
thing. And I don't know, I haven't looked at Washington Law Help to see if that
Sure.
stuff is up there, but I'll send it along.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Sarah, if you have that link, you could put it in the chat because I think folks on the board might, I don't know if
I can forward it. It's an email
oh, it's
and
an
it's
email.
got,
Okay.
but I'm happy to forward it to you, Mike, and
Yeah. Oh,
you
no, I
can
thought maybe
share.
it was just on their website, like it was on the Commerce website that they
Yeah.
have these resources. Okay.
Well, I gotta hop off.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then any other updates? I see Kari from the Washington State Bar Association Board of Governors. Welcome. Do you have any updates for us? Sometimes Chris will have updates for us, but not to put you on the spot. All right. So let's move on to the next, which is announcements. And so this announcements is more for general announcements for the board as well as for our guests and people who are part of the alliance. My first announcement is I'd like to congratulate Citlali Briseño. She is going to be our new chair-elect starting in October, and I am so excited to be able to work with her. As you all know, that the chair, my role is a 2-year role, and so it will be exciting for my second year as chair to be working directly with Citlali, and she has been a great, I don't know, when she has brought things to the board, for example, around stipends for communities with lived experience and organizations who we meet with at the ATJ board, and has been really a community advocate and a community voice. And so it's great that to be able to work with her, and I'm excited to have her as the new chair-elect. So that is good news. And the second thing, wanted to also let folks know that the board earlier today, we were planning, I think I had mentioned this maybe at a previous ATJ board meeting, we were planning on doing on-the-road visit to Spokane, and that was going to be at I think the 24th through the 26th. And due to the fires that are devastating that area, we've decided to look for an alternative location for our ATJ on the road, just because it is just so just hearing some of the stories, and I'm really appreciative to board members who really brought this to the attention, said, hey, is it wise for us to be asking for community listening sessions and input when right now there's so much has really impacted that area and the neighborhood and the community. So we are really shifting, but we're also really looking at the same time. There was some great conversation around thinking about like what could emergency support look like, convening, thinking about like responding to natural disasters and topics like this, because Washington State has had several, Michael, you brought up the floods, right? The flooding in like 6, 7 counties, thinking about the fires that have been happening in all around the state, thinking about what does that look like for more of a coordinated legal support, because we do know that there are some unintended consequences when natural disasters happen. They also, talking about evictions that Sarah had mentioned, there's a lot of different things that do come up when these natural disasters impact communities. So we're really kind of are really kind of on the drawing boards of exploring this. We'd love to partner with our alliance members to really think about like how we can really be more of assistance. But we've decided as a board to kind of shift gears just because of the impact of the fires in Spokane. And all of us are just concerned, and a number of board members like Leslie, and I know Citlali and Chrissy have come, have worked and have been part of those communities, have shared some of the impacts. So appreciative that the board has been, we're able to pivot that. But those are really a couple of the announcements that we have. Are there any other questions or another announcements from board members, from alliance members, anything else for the good of the group?
I just want to say thanks and the attention to the disasters and the what's happening in our community and the need for this organization to like we know that when disasters happen, they're going to have all sorts of consequences, right? Not just on the house that's burned down, but all of these other. We know the cascading of, and we need to take every opportunity to remind people that like we it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be that people are displaced and have like their basic needs aren't met. Like it doesn't have to be. We can do so much more for each other than we don't need to be resigned to, well, that's just how it is. And there, as if there was really nothing we could do. There is money and there are resources available for so many things, and we need to direct that to helping each other. So if there, in any of the ways that if you know anyone that's really good at thinking about how we direct that conversation more broadly, and anytime we have a chance to talk to folks, I think we have it's a duty that we have because we understand this acutely. And I think once you spend some time with folks who haven't thought about it at all, it'll make so much sense to them that it really isn't the case that you have to, the hours that Sarah and her team at Okla are spending trying to stop law enforcement from doing a thing that seems horrific. Like it shouldn't have to be so flippant hard to look around and figure out ways to help each other. And so in addition to using our actual legal tools to get that done through litigation or the pressure that we put on public officials or whatever it is that we can do, I think it just has to be part of the bigger conversation that we're having with each other about how like it doesn't have to be this way. So thank you for being part of that broader message around.
Yeah.
I don't know how
thanks,
I'm
Abby.
fired up because we can do this. Like I think we can do this.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, no, Abby, we actually spent part of our conversation in our working session just like, what is it that we can do? And I think one of the conversation was like, the intention around, of course, our ATJ on the road has been listening sessions, but I think a lot of board members say we actually need to do something. Like we actually need to volunteer, to serve, to donate, to actually convene conversations about like how do we as a state respond to these, and how do we make sure that things that's not we're more proactive and not after the fact, because these disasters, and I think Michael, you did say in the comments here, we get now one every year now, absolutely, and it's actually may even become more frequent than just once a year. It can actually happen every 3 to 6 months, and it's just really, I think we need to kind of bring in the humanity side of the services that we do. And it's not just, and I think we do all have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility in our roles and our community to kind of think about like, what can we do to really bring this to light? Like Abby, I agree. How do we bring this to light so that we're talking about it and that we are a part of this community? We're not separate from, just because we're 300 miles away from Spokane doesn't mean that we are connected to Spokane. And in Skagit Valley and other areas in Okanagan County and all the other different areas. And so I think it's just that the humanity that we need to bring to this, and then use our tools, our legal tools, our resources, our advocacy, our voice to be able to speak up to when these things happen. So I think it is a time for us to do some reflection point, and I think that the board and I really appreciate board members to really speak to that today, because we in our conscience cannot just go to a place where they've just experienced some tragic things. And so that's why I really appreciate the board's support in the decision for the board. All right, is there any other questions or comments? I also appreciate that we've had a really great conversation. Thank you, Mercedes, for the conversation around the rapid response around the Lozano case, and Diana for kind of keeping us updated. I know, Diana, you've been kind of behind the scenes coordinating a lot of like, okay, how do we get, things together? And so appreciative that we have such experts on this board to really bring to light a lot of these things. But at the same time, it's for us to think as a board, like, how do we make sure we get those messages out to community, right? Whether it's the legal community, community with lived experience, and how do we make sure that we're seeing all of these responses as really critical for folks. They do impact families and individuals. All right. Well, I don't, unless there's other topics that and Diana, is there any other topics that we should, anything else and board members, anything I missed? Because there's a lot I sometimes miss. So. All right. Well, hey, with that said, I'm giving 25 minutes back to all of you. Thank you so much to the board members, to our guests, to the Alliance members for being part of this meetings. And I look forward to, I think because we are kind of pivoting, we're not sure around, typically we will have the next ATJ board meeting in September, but I think that we typically have that with our ATJ on the road, but I'm not sure if we will have a meeting scheduled. I can't remember if there's anything scheduled for that September.
In September, there is the Rural Day of Justice in Grant County. And so just wanted to say shout out to that WSBA and NJP partnership to bring volunteers to Grant County to do some work. So I think it's an effort within STAR, maybe the small town.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you. So that's just, sorry, another save the date in Grant County on Friday the 18th. Be there. Tell your pro bonos. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Abby. And I'm also the liaison with the STAR committee. And I think I attended the meeting a little bit late in the last meeting. So thanks for calling that out. So
yeah,
appreciate that.
Even if there's a meeting, there's a reason to convene.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, I think that concludes today's meeting. Thank you all for participating. And yeah, Diana, you have a question or you just want to, we're just waving. Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks so much. And hope you have a nice rest of your weekend. So thanks everybody.
You do.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.